Valery Yosipenko take part in our conference. It's our colleague also. She graduated high politics school in Paris and will help us if something was wrong, misunderstanding in English and French. So, hi everybody, or as commonly now say in here, it's good morning. Now we have evening. Good morning. We are from Ukraine. Now I would like to share my presentation. Sorry. And start. Can you see it? Yes?
Yes, it's very nice. Thank you.
Okay. Just a moment. Now it will start. Disappeared something. Okay. Meanwhile, yeah. I try to briefly describe the situation in Ukraine with safeguarding and protection of our heritage during the war. I would like to start with some interesting fact that at the beginning of February, I finished translation of the book A War to Be Won, about Second World War, American war analyst Williamson Murray and Alan Millett. And it's interesting analysis of World War. And for me, it was very interesting. And I thought that it will be impossible to repeat once again. As they write, you can see that it was the deadliest conflict in the modern history. Combining not only slaughter of soldiers, but direct attacks against civilians. And World War II has been the war for half a century in Europe and Asia, and will retain that status well into 21st century. It was the past, but it continues to shape the present and the future, wrote the authors. And it's very strange, but the situation repeated now in 21st century, because on February 24, once more, early morning, at between 4 and 5 o'clock, Russians bombed our cities, and Kyiv awoke with bombing. You can see here the gouache picture of Max Chagall, Famille Ukrainian. It's about events in 1941, 1943. Max Chagall, as you know, it's French painter of Belarus origin. He was Jew, and it was a painting about this situation. But now this tragedy returned because it is impossible to compare with other war, local war during 20th and 21st century in Vietnam, Afghanistan, Syria, where global superpowers took part. But in each of these conflicts, these superpowers, they supported one opposite party, local party. And now we have large-scale aggression, invasive war against Ukrainian people, against Ukrainian history, against Ukrainian culture. You can see here the settlement close to Kyiv. It's called Bucha, and it's very ordinary for us. It's very common now picture from different our cities and localities, including Chernihiv, including Mariupol, including Kharkiv. You see, it's desire to eliminate Ukrainian culture and Ukrainian
on est bien aujourd'hui, par exemple, moi je trouve.
identity.
Ouais, on était bien là-bas au village. sûr qu'on a fait le tour vite.
Excusez-moi, pourriez-vous couper vos micros s'il vous
Sorry.
plaît, on vous entend. Nous avons coupé le conférencier. Merci à tous de couper vos micros en attendant. Monsieur Butsenko, juste pour vous informer.
Continue.
Yeah,
Okay.
just to let you know, the slides on your PowerPoint aren't changing. We are still on the first slide.
Sorry.
That's okay, don't worry.
Very strange. Now?
Okay. Yes, now we
Yes.
see.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
This is about, I have said, about the settlement of Bucha, 20 kilometers from Kiev. And speaking about Ukrainian culture, Ukrainian heritage, you know about our monuments, about our sites in Kiev, in Lviv, in many other cities. And I would like to show you some of them only. This is, for example, Poltava History Museum. It's Ukrainian modernism of 1930s. Then it's Chernihiv wood architecture of 19th century. Chernihiv now is destroyed almost by 70%. I don't know about this building and about local museum. Here is the Kamianets-Podilsk fortress. It's 14th, 16th century. It was also the center of Polish Ukrainian and then Ukrainian culture. And the last is the Kharkov monument of Bauhaus architecture. It was built in 1923, 1928. It was so-called state building. It was the first so huge Bauhaus construction in Lviv. It is situated in the central square of Kharkiv, the square of liberty or square of freedom. And then you can see many settlement sites of cultural and historic and natural value. For example, Khortytsa Island is a candle of Cossacks culture. It's close to Zaporizhia. Now Zaporizhia is fighting against Russian troops as well. It's some island where start the Cossack Republic in 15th, 16th century. And now in Sinevir Lake in Carpathian Mountains, it's the largest lake in Carpathian Mountains. It's one of our magnificent lake of many other lakes in Ukraine. And speaking about culture, the desire of Russian aggression is destruction of cultural assets and values, with the aim to erase Ukrainian as independent sovereign states. To the left, you can see one of the rituals from Odessa region, the so-called Moshu. It's a combined ritual of Ukrainians and Moldovan people, because it's a place where a lot of different nationalities live: Moldavian, Romanian, Ukrainians. The Ukrainian culture is very multinational culture. We have about 130 nationalities in Ukraine. In our register of intangible cultural heritage, we have Tatar elements, Karaim elements, and so it's Moldavian elements. Above you see different crafts. It's from the exhibition of National Union of Folk Art Masses of Ukraine. It's different products of craft skills of Ukraine. And at the bottom, you can see children with Easter painted eggs. The children are from Lugansk region. And I don't know about their fate now, where they are. Or they are internal replacement people in part of Ukraine, or they are refugees in Poland, in Lithuania, in Germany, and other countries, or they are hiding in shelters from bombings, or they are killed, because now we have almost 150 children killed in Ukraine in different cities, and the same number is injured or wounded. So we can remind the words of George Orwell, who controls the past, controls the future. And we see that they would like to erase the past and also eliminate our future. And now you can see bombed and damaged some of our cultural assets. to the top left, left maybe, you can see the Museum of Chernihiv. Yesterday I discussed with the director of the museum and asked him to join us, but he said me that they have no electricity, water, internet, food, and they are in siege now, the Chernihiv city on the northern part of Ukraine. Also, it's necessary to say about museum in the city of Ivankiv, not far from Kiev, where the works of Maria Primachenko, very famous folk master of Ukraine. History Museum in Chernihiv, you see also, you can see at the bottom this central square of Kharkiv. It's from the other side where is Bauhaus construction. At the other side of the square, it's completely destroyed now. And to the right top, you can see the church in the city of Malin. Malin is Zhytomyr region, also not so far from Kiev. Then you can see here drama theater above, to the left, and to the right, library in Mariupol. Mariupol is destroyed by 90% now. And in only Mariupol, more than 3,000 civilians were killed last 2 weeks. Also, you can see this Zhytomyr region. It's close to the village of Vyazivka, where was destroyed the 19th century wooden church. And you can see this picture of different small villages and towns in the Zhytomyr region now. And you can imagine I use more or less modest pictures because we have so terrific photos. Well, now every other cities and city authorities take measures to protect their heritage. You can see different monuments. To the left, it's the monument of the Kiev founders, three brothers, Kiyshek and Khoriv, and their sister Libit. It's legendary founders of Kiev. And now you can see the empty streets. It's the Maidan of Independence, Maidan Nezalezhnosti in Kiev, famous Maidan. Now only our defenders stay here and some protection of monuments. To the right, you can see this famous monument of Duke Richelieu in Odessa, and they prepare to protect them. And the last is the Lviv, the city on Lviv. All cities, they protect the monuments. It's also only some pictures. Then you can see the famous monument in Kiev, in the center of Kiev, in the downtown of Kiev. Small monument. It's monument to hedgehog in the frog. It's some personage of animated film. And now they removed this monument and with this announcement, I went to defend my homeland. During even all these events, the scientific activities and discoveries continue. And even you can see that even preparing fortifications in Chernihiv, the warriors or the members of so-called territorial defense, they discovered pieces of pot from 18th century and transferred it into the local history museum. In Kiev, digging also during these works for fortification in the suburb of Kiev, the members of small Academy of Science discovered a tooth of shark dated back to the 50 million years, and they transmitted it to the National History Museum. You can see this National History Museum of Ukraine to the right. It's replenishing its collection. Also, the Ministry of Culture of Ukraine and Information and Policy, they opened a special web page in the website to collect all evidence about damages and losses of our cultural heritage. So now they gathered all these facts about damages, museums, libraries, theaters, and also about churches, temples, and many others things which we have lost and which are damaged now. Our site of our center, Democracy Through Culture, is we collected different evidence about intangible cultural heritage. Here you see some samples of Petrikivka decorated painting, which is inscribed on UNESCO representative list. Petrikivka is a village in Dnipropetrovsk region, and I also connected with them yesterday, and they said that it's very difficult to move for bearers of this traditional painting, because in general, everyone in Petrikivka, the whole families are bearers, so it's necessary to move the whole family from Petrikivka to western part of Ukraine or to other cities. The same is the same situation is with Cossack songs of Dnipropetrovsk region. It's also one of our elements inscribed in UNESCO list, because the bearers of these elements, they live in the village around the city of Dnipro. They are aged people, and now they are also endangered, and this tradition is under endangered. What, very briefly, what about needs assessment, tangible heritage and museum? It's necessary to do, and we are doing together with the Ministry of Culture, together with National Academy of Arts, and some of our professional unions and associations, documentation of all damages and losses related to monuments, sites, and buildings, museum collections, funds, even experts, staffs, because it's necessary also to think about people, equipment, and many others. Then it's necessary to accumulate in funds for emergency support, for removal of our funds, for making protection, transportation, and providing employees subsistence. And thinking about the future needs, restoration, reconstruction, training, and organizing different exhibition, maybe of Canadian museums, of other part, for aware or people about the role of culture, about the role of cultural heritage. And the last but not least, it's a distribution of information, including photo description, analytical service globally about the losses of Ukrainian tangible heritage. As for the intangible heritage, as well, monitoring and documentation the situation with intangible cultural heritage. We are connecting with communities. Some of our communities now they are under occupation, occupied. For example, Melitopol, it's also not far from Azov Sea, and they have Karaite communities, small communities, also with the element inscribed in the National Register of Intangible Cultural Heritage. It's very difficult now to have connection with them because it's very dangerous for them. Also, we have connection with heritage centers in different cities, associations, NGOs related, and it's necessary thinking about related to intangible cultural heritage sites because they are almost destroy environment and also products or our crafts. Then we are thinking about creation of ICH map before and after Russian aggression, including data on bearers and craftsmen. We collect this data to prepare and then compare these maps or atlas of intangible cultural heritage. And collecting of master class on ICH elements, for example, Easter eggs painting, Vivi making of dolls, paper cutting, and many others. We shall collect these master classes and distribute it because a lot of Ukrainians are refugees in different countries, including children's, and it will be very useful for them for use. And also it will be very informative for other countries. And then activation of IC platforms. On our site, we have a platform where NGOs, crafts and art association, research center and institution, Ministry of Culture, local heritage organization, bureaus. They take part for distribute information and distribute initiatives. And concluding, I would like to say about great importance of the global support of our fighting in Ukraine. And also return to the book with which I start my short presentation. The authors of the book, they finished their book with words, attempts to impose imperial regimes founded on the racial superiority, slavery and genocide did not succeed because of extraordinary efforts and sacrifices made by allied soldiers, sailors, airmen, and marines from all around the world. Americans, Australians, Britons, Canadians, Chinese, French, Indians, Poles, Russians, Ukrainians, and innumerable other nationalities. The same we have now in Ukraine. We have a global support from different countries, from different nationalities, including humanitarian aid, including arms, and even warriors. We have this International Legion Defense of Ukraine. It consists of volunteers from different countries. This legion has separate Canadian battalion, and we are very thankful for all countries because it's really for support and for solidarity. We trust in our future because we are from Ukraine. Well, thanks for attention. Merci pour attention. And here you have connection and one of the pictures, because it's now we have a lot of different pictures every day in our social networks and internet. Thank you. Now, if you have some questions, you can do it in French, as I say, because my colleague will help if I don't understand, but I try, but better in English, really.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much, Oleksandr Butsenko, for this presentation, which gave us, I think, a very clear idea of what is happening and you know, how you were trying to react in the best way you can to you know, to protect your heritage and also to reach out for help and so thank you. It was very clear and very moving. We will now be able to take some questions. So people can ask their questions either in English or French. If you're more comfortable in French, you know, we can simply translate into English. Would that be okay, Oleksandr?
Yep.
Yes. Okay. And I did want to say, alors je vais le dire en français. Bon, actuellement, j'ai discuté avec nos invités ces derniers jours et puis je leur ai demandé, ben, qu'est-ce qu'on peut faire, comment est-ce qu'on peut être utile pour vous aider. Alors, ce qui leur sera le plus utile en ce moment, c'est un soutien technique pour savoir comment conserver les œuvres, qu'ils soient matérielles ou immatérielles, mais aussi des dons. Parce que c'est difficile pour nous de nous déplacer pour aller en Ukraine en raison des distances, puis aussi en raison des risques. Alors, ce qu'ils nous ont dit, c'est que la meilleure façon pour aider maintenant, lorsqu'on est à distance, c'est de faire des dons à leur fondation. J'ai mis dans le chat, on l'avait mis dans la lettre d'invitation, mais je l'ai remis ici dans le chat, le petit paragraphe concernant les dons. Alors, ceux qui souhaitent faire des dons peuvent simplement prendre les coordonnées là, qui sont dans le chat ou bien dans l'invitation qui a été envoyée. Nous avons mis là les coordonnées de la banque, de leur organisation non gouvernementale qui s'appelle Democracy for Culture. Alors voilà, donc on va passer maintenant. Oleksandr, could you maybe stop the share screen so that we can have everyone, you know, on the screen?
Yeah. Just a moment. I can't find this. Where is this screen?
Yeah, the button down below the green button.
Yeah. Yes, no, just a moment.
Okay, fine. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, yes, thanks again. So we can now go on to the question period. On peut passer à la période de questions. Donc voilà, alors je vois, il y a déjà des mains levées. Farida. Allô? Peut-être que votre micro est fermé, Farida. On ne vous entend pas.
Oui, allô?
Oui, oh, voilà, on vous entend maintenant. Oui.
Oui, je pense que j'ai un petit problème de connexion. Ça coupe un petit peu. En fait, moi, dans le fond, bon, premièrement, je suis vraiment triste et solidaire donc, avec le peuple ukrainien. Moi, je ne suis pas du domaine, mais j'ai dans la famille des personnes qui sont dans le domaine. Mais je suis très, très sensible à la question de patrimoine. Mon cœur se déchire à chaque fois qu'il y a des guerres ou des arts, des chefs-d'œuvre comme ça disparaissent. Ce n'est pas normal. Et c'est juste une petite question parce que, oui, il y a des dons. Bon, moi, j'ai pris l'adresse, je peux même partager. La question, c'est est-ce qu'il y a les plans d'architectes de tous ces musées? Est-ce qu'ils existent? Est-ce qu'il y a tous ces archives-là? Si un jour ils vont penser à reconstituer ce genre de musée? C'est juste ça ma question. Merci.
Okay. Oleksandr, have you understood the question in French? She would like to know if you have the architectural plans of the buildings so that they could maybe be reconstructed afterwards.
Yes, thank you. Surely every museum, every monument, every site, they have architecture plan, and we can reconstruct it. It's really will be difficult because it not be rebuilding but reconstruction. It's some of our monuments, they date back to 18, 19, and some to the 12th century, and it will be rather difficult to make restoration, not reconstruction, but restoration. As for the other premises, yes, we can reconstruct, for example, libraries, if not monument, or reconstruct theaters. But as you can see, some of our museums in Poltava and many others, they are monuments. They represent our Ukrainian modernism or early period. So some plans and architects we have, or we had, now I don't know about architects, because where they are. We shall start it after the war because it's necessary to finish this war. And till now, we have not seen the term of the finishing because Moscow authorities, they said that they don't like to finish, and we plan that maybe within a month there will be some changes and we start to rebuilding and reconstruction. But you can imagine that, for example, in Syria, Russia used during last 2 years above 100 missiles. In Ukraine, less than a month, they used about 1,000 missiles, including hypersonic missiles and white phosphorus bombs. In our cities, like even in Kiev yesterday as well. So it's necessary to wait, but we have plans, and we shall ask also some maybe experts to help us, maybe with funds, maybe with skills. But really, as the president of Ukraine said, after finishing, we start rebuilding, and we rebuild everything.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you. Thank you. Yes, I think thanks also for the comparison, because I think many people don't realize, the amount of bombing and damage that has gone on just in 1 month in Ukraine. Yes, Ashia.
Aïcha.
Aïcha, pardon.
Yeah.
Excusez-moi.
Ok. Oh, oui, on vous écoute, Aïcha. C'est à vous.
OK. Merci, professeur. J'aimerais aller en anglais si ça ne vous gêne pas.
Oui, oui, non, allez-y, oui, ça sera plus facile, oui.
But English, if you
Okay, so I would like to thank Mr. Oleksandr for his presentation, and I'm really sorry for what is happening now in Ukraine. During your presentation, you mentioned some measures taken by the government. I didn't quite jot them down. Can you please take them again by telling us exactly what the government is doing, like concrete actions to preserve the cultural heritage in Ukraine, and what is the action of the local population? I'm talking about the Ukrainians who are living there. What is their action to preserve also this heritage? Thank you.
Thank you, Isha, for the question. The government is, as I said, they collect now all evidence of the losses for the future reconstruction and rebuilding, and including sites, monuments, and different religions, temples, museums, and so on. But also they organize some emergency fund, with the help of different organizations, Ukrainian Cultural Foundation, some association of museums. They organize some fund, and also it's crowdfunding and fundraising, firstly for support staffs of museums, because many of our museum workers, they lose their work now and their salaries. Also, there are a lot of information campaign gathering funds for support museums. First of all, for protect collections. Many museums, they moved their collection from the dangerous zones. For example, even it's ridiculous, but the Chekhov Museum in Sumy and Kuinji Museum in Mariupol, representing Russian culture. They protect and they shoot to protect the collections from bombing and explosions. So on the national level, they have contact with all our regional administration, and regional administration, they also have contacts with different cultural organization and heritage centers. But anyway, in many cities, it's very difficult to do, because the first thing is to protect life of people. For example, as I said, in Mariupol, in Chernigov, in Sumy, in many other cities, we can also document losses, but thinking about people, about children, about women, and trying to organize so-called green corridors. It's also the great problem, because we try to negotiate about these green corridors with Russian troops. They agreed, but then they violate their promises and started to fire on buses with children and with women from evacuating from different cities, as in northern part and eastern part of Ukraine. So that it's.
Perhaps, Oleksandr, since you talked about museums, I just wanted to jump in here and say, have the museums managed, most of the museums managed to, withdraw their collections and put them in safekeeping, or is there still a lot of work to be done in that area? And my second question is that, how can we be helpful? How could we from Canada help, the museum world right now?
Well, in most cities, collection are still in museums, because after before the war, up to the last moment, nobody believed that it could stop, and so museum collection, in many cases, they are protected. They maybe moved to the fund, to some shelter, but they are still in museums. Even in the city of Chernihiv, the director of museum said that he couldn't leave museum because he is responsible for collection, and he continued to be under bombing and trying to protect everything. As for the help, maybe some consultancy about what could be done under such situation. And first of all, what they need museums, they need materials, protective materials to wrap, to protect the museum objects and to leave them. They, in many cases, they need some special transport, and also maybe some pressure to Russian authorities to organize green corridors, not only for people, but also for heritage values.
Yeah. Yes, okay. Yes, thank you. So I understand it would be equipment, primarily equipment, and what about donations, funds? If you had funds, would you be able to better organize the the protection of the museum objects by putting them in protective cases and transporting them in a secure way? Would that help, or do you have the personnel, or would there be people available to undertake those tasks on the ground right now?
Yes, we are closely working with the Ministry of Culture. They have special department, Heritage Department, which is responsible also for heritage issues, and we're in contact with them. Also, we work closely with the Vice Minister, with some organization, Museum Association, ICOM of Ukraine as well, and many other organizations. So donation would be a very good thing. They will go to the common fund for museum protection, and other fund we need for safeguarding of our intangible cultural heritage, working with local communities and many other people. So our organization, we have not a huge personnel, but all of us are in Kyiv till now, and we have good connection with different organizations in our regions. First, on national level, responsible for this distribution of support and aid, as well on the regional level. And you see it's from Dnipropetrovsk region, very active, and from Chernihiv, from Odessa region, we have very good connection, and we can work with them directly.
Okay, thank you. That's very helpful. Anyway, I've again just like to mention that je vais passer en français, que j'ai mis l'information pour ceux qui veulent faire des dons. Alors, je comprends que ça serait utile pour eux là, d'avoir un soutien financier en ce moment. Ça les aiderait à mettre les collections muséologiques à l'abri, et puis de payer les gens qui, si j'ai bien compris, n'ont plus dans bien des cas, n'ont plus de salaire. Hein. Je vois que Jean-François Gauvin s'est joint à nous. Bonjour Jean-François, très heureux. Alors voilà, on est à la période des questions, donc on a enregistré la conférence, donc on pourra la visionner par la suite. OK, merci. N'hésite pas si tu as des questions. Alors, je vois qu'il y a Igor Timofez. Oui, Igor.
Yeah, there's me.
Yes, in French or English, whatever.
Anything. I'm definitely very sensitive to everything what happens there. Because originally I'm from Odessa, and I'm here at University Laval for almost 30 years. I'm professor in the Department of Psychiatry and Neuroscience, and the first day of this war, a bomb blew up about 2 kilometers from where my mother lives. So I'm very sensitive to all that. I'm trying to help people as much as possible. I use my vast international connections to help refugees that are outside Ukraine to have safe place. I have people that I never know in Slovakia, in Hungary, in Turkey. Those that are in Turkey, they're coming to Canada, and likely they will stay in my place because they have no place to go. So it's I still have maybe not very pleasant questions. Actually, I had one question to you before, but during your presentation, I have another question. In September 2014, the president of Ukraine in Odessa Opera House stated that our children will go to school and their children, referring to children of Donbas people, will stay in basements. I saw it. It's not interpretation. This is what he said. They did for 8 years. What was your personal reaction to that?
Well, after 2014, I was in Lugansk and Donbas region in some cities in Slavyansk, and now you know this, which is also under bombing. It's Lavra in Slavyansk, and I don't know, because about this statement, I didn't hear it about. First of all, the second, I
will send you a link.
Okay, please.
Well, it disappears continuously from the internet, but the new appears. Yes.
I met with people on the frontier, and I know people who lived in Donbas area. Yes, frankly, it's from the Ukrainian side, there were no bombing of this.
Well, they have cemetery, they called Cemetery of Angels, where more than 100 young
they have a lot of
are buried, killed by military, by bombings.
Bombing, but no one Ukrainian bomb going to Donetsk. I was in Donetsk before, and now I couldn't come here. In Lugansk, I worked also as a reporter many times. So it's really, you would say that it's necessary now to punish Ukraine for this 8 year of Russian aggression in Donbas?
Definitely.
Because they also, there was annexion of Crimea, it was annexion in Crimea, and also the occupation of Donbas area without any.
Yes, look, I do not defend it. Look, there's no excuse to start war. And this war, I'm not sure how people in the room understand, but to me, this is civil war because there are families on both sides of the border. This is just something.
No, it's not civil war. You know, it's not civil war because
formally not, but there are families in both sides of the border. No, what do you mean?
No, it's not civil war because Ukraine. You see, Ukraine was really before 2014 more or less divided by different parts. Now, all Ukraine is united due to this war. All our nationalities, all Ukrainians, they say we are from Ukraine. It's not civil war. It's a real aggression.
Okay. Maybe we could thank you, Igor, for the question.
Because that just came during presentation,
Yeah.
but I had question before.
With
Again,
regard
we
to
saw
heritage,
the
maybe.
interpretation. Ukrainian Minister of Culture, Evgeny Nishchuk, in November 2016, stated that people in Zaporizhia, Cherkasy, Donbass do not have genetic to accept Ukrainian culture. What is your definition of Ukrainian culture?
After this phrase, he was fired as a Minister of Culture, nothing more.
Okay. Okay, thank you. There are other people who want to ask questions. Thank you, Igor, for your questions. Julie Deschepper. Oui, Julie.
Oui, merci beaucoup d'avoir organisé cette conférence et je vais aussi passer en anglais directement. Dear Oleksandr, I just also would like to express my deep support and also solidarity with Ukraine. And I just wanted to let you know that outside of Ukraine, a lot of people are really working so hard to protect Ukrainian cultural heritage. And so you have all our support, both at an individual but also institutional level. And so I will put some link as well in the chat so that, of course, but everyone can read it. But it was important for me to let you know also that we are very sensitive and we do, of course, it's I would say the bare minimum, but we really try to do our best from outside of Ukraine. And maybe some initiatives that you might know, there is the website Sucho Saving Ukrainian Cultural Heritage Online, where we do monitor every destruction, but we also save websites and archives. So speaking also about intangible heritage, saving the website where all the information are there. And of course, anyone can volunteer there. We don't need a specific training or specific qualification, and it's really open and we need volunteers. So please, anyone can join. And in terms of donation and material, ICOM, I think that contacting the national ICOM of your country and see directly with them where you can donate, because they do organize then the distribution of the material inside of Ukraine. With specific people that are deployed there. Of course, it's not all the time public information because they are monuments men and women, the more than one, but also people from the army that are inside the country and also helping the very brave Ukrainian that are doing everything they can to protect their heritage. And maybe answering a question that has been asked in the chat, if some collections are abroad, I would like to say, just to answer very quick, that yes, some of this collection have been evacuated, yet it's a secret because we cannot say where these collections are, but we know that for a fact they have been, some of them, what can have been rescued. So just also because it's an opportunity to speak about a very concrete action, I will put, if you don't mind, some links in the chat so that everyone can see them. But thank you very much again, dear Oleksandr.
Thank you, Julia. Well, as I know, no collection till now are abroad. They are protected, but it's not so necessity. Some of them are in western part of Ukraine. It's really. But as for the links, we are also work with national ICOM and Vice Minister of our Minister of Culture. She is a member of this, Vice President of this ICOM. So it could be good to have links. In my presentation, there were our links. You can come to our website and contact with us, with different organizations, because we are working now closely in Ukraine to resolve these issues and thinking about the future.
Okay, thank you. Merci, Julie. Thank you. There are a few questions in the chat. I'll just jump in now because no one has their hand up. There's François Lemoine who has asked if the artworks, in the museum collections are protected in sites in Ukraine, and
Yes.
or are they also have some of them been sent abroad to foreign countries to be protected?
No, till now, as I said, art collections from art museums, they are in Ukraine, because we hope that Ukraine will come over all this tragedy, and and this collection will return to their museums. But if necessary, we start to discuss this possibility to move some collection firstly to the western part and then maybe abroad.
Yes. Okay. There's another question by Agnes. Maybe Agnes, if you're still there, do you want to ask? No, she's not there anymore. Okay. Well, her question was: has the fortress of sorry for the pronunciation, Kamianets-Podolsky been destroyed?
Kamianets-Podolsky. Kamianets-Podolsky is not destroyed till now. It's this fortress is not destroyed because it's in the Khmelnytsky region. It's our part, it's central western part of Ukraine. So they have not till now, they have not intense bombing till now. So it's safe. And many people from Kiev, from Chernihiv, from northern part of Ukraine, they moved to Khmelnytsky, to Kamianets-Podilsky, because it's more or less safe till now. So.
Okay, well, that's good news. That's good news. Thank you. I don't see any other questions in the chat. Okay, I see Julie has put the website addresses in the chat. So please open the chat if you want those, and you can copy and paste them in your MS Word document or elsewhere. Okay, Jean-François Nadeau, you have a question.
Bonjour, I'm a journalist from Montreal, so I would like to ask you a very simple question. What is, from your point of view, the worst lost so far, from a cultural point of view, of course? And my second question, do you have any evidence right now that cultural monuments are direct sites? What could you tell us about that?
Well, thanks. I'll start from the second question. Maybe in some cases they really are direct aim, because we are seen especially in such cities as Mariupol, in Chernihiv, and even in Zhytomyr region, the sites and monuments were aims of these raids, air raids. As for Kiev, I can't say, because Kiev is more or less protected, in monuments protected by, especially in central part of the city. But as for the cultural organization, yes, they were aims of the aggression, because most of our cultural organization, including theaters, including cultural centers, they became volunteer points. And also they help people, and a lot of people gathered around these points, and many museums, they provide even defenders with some clothes and people with food and so on. So they could be aims, and not only because they're cultural, but as well as cultural. But if frankly, it's really very difficult to understand all these actions and all these bombings. And so it's really, and even this Also the menace of from the Russian side to use a nuclear bomb, as they said. So it's crazy situation, and we can't predict nothing.
Mhm. Maybe
And what about my first question? What is so far the worst loss?
Worst what?
The worst loss, to your opinion, in your opinion, what has been the biggest loss in terms of cultural heritage right now?
Right now, it's only some real, very ancient churches in Zhytomyr region, in Chernigov region, in Sumy region. It's a very old historic monuments. They were destroyed. And also Chernigov is, maybe you know, is a city dated back to 12th, 11th century. It's destroyed almost 60% of this city. Mariupol is also an old ancient city. It's a city of Azov, at the Sea of Azov, where a lot of Azov Greek lived and live till now. So it destroyed by 80%. And many cities, they are destroyed by 50, 30%. So it's very difficult now to evaluate the losses, especially of monuments and sites. I can't say, and I didn't say in my presentation about natural sites. I mean natural parks, zoos, and many others. And for example, such unique park at Tuscania Nova and Kherson region, very famous all over the world, where a lot of rare animals and plants live. And they now is under bombing and many other things. It's very difficult now to maybe calculate all these losses, because it's necessary to have possibility to come and then to evaluate all the damages.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Any more questions, comments, or maybe suggestions? Because as I said, we're trying to help and to be positive and to move forward, and you know, as optimistic as we can. So okay, Jean-François, yes, you have a question. Thank you, Jean-François Nadeau, from journalist from Le Devoir. Happy to see you here. Thank you for coming.
Ну, буквально через минут 10. Я просто тут с Канадой, у меня тут идет. Одну секунду.
Bon. Okay, Jean-François?
Oui, merci, Laurier. I'm very sorry to have missed your talk. I was caught in another meeting. It's the president of the university here there's an election here, so I'm part of that, different committees about that. So I had to miss the beginning of your talk, but thank you so much for doing this. As many people mentioned before, so we're looking at this situation, and we're very saddened by what we see on all fronts, on all different aspects of society, culture, and everything. My question would be, I didn't hear your talk, so maybe you talked about that, but we just had one question asking what do you think was the biggest loss so far? I'm wondering, looking on the future, how do you think that everything that's happening right now will impact the way that you're going to teach heritage, you're going to teach museum studies? What do you think? Is there ways that you think that the field will have to change, will have to adapt to what happened? How do you think that, and what do you think that we can learn from that, all of us here, from what's happening? So what can we do to in our programs? Because I'm responsible for the museum studies program here at Université Laval, and I'm wondering, how can we teach about that? This is a real problem, and it has happened in the past. And I want to make sure that my students are aware of the consequences of war, of what's happening right now, especially in Ukraine. So how do you think that it will change the way that you teach about heritage, that you teach about museum studies, and to make sure that people understand how important all of that is to a nation?
I think it's very important question, and we also are thinking now about this and thinking about the future, because a lot of international documents, including our convention and many other, they are not protected for us under such situation, how to do in future, how to explain and raise the role of culture and cultural heritage, and how to demonstrate that museums, they are values. If frankly, now I don't know, because we are discussing with my colleagues from museums and from other organizations, including UNESCO, not only ICH, but also tangible cultural heritage, and they prepared some guide how to do it. But you see, different guides, even collecting different cases, they are not, they couldn't be so supportive when you see the situation. And I don't know how to explain, but every war in 21st century is some madness. And you see when crazy people, they don't want to know about museums and about heritage. So it's really very difficult how to arrange children, not for example in Ukraine, but how to learn children in Russia, that it's impossible to do now. This is the question. But I almost support, and we can think about it and start preparing some maybe not courses, but some materials for global discussion, and preparing them maybe for future some convention. But you see, this convention and even many other documents, international documents, they have no forces now under such situation. We are ready to discuss it and to start to collaborate and develop this, and we can give our experience after the situation, and maybe we shall find some good cases and solution for such situation. No more.
Thank you.
Jean-François Nadeau, là, vous avez la main encore levée. Est-ce que vous aviez une autre question? Jean-François Nadeau, ou peut-être que vous avez simplement oublié de baisser votre main. Bon. Alors, maybe just one last question with regard to intangible cultural heritage. You know, you alluded to that, and you mentioned, you know, the master classes teaching children to do Easter egg paintings and so on. Children that would be in refugee camps or maybe in foreign countries already. Is there anything that, you know, we can do along those lines? Because I found that was a very interesting approach to you know, preserving heritage, because we have a tendency to think of heritage in terms of material objects and often forget, you know, the intangible parts of heritage. And I thought those were sort of interesting examples, and I was wondering, you know, if there's anything we can do in that specific area of living heritage.
Surely. Today we have discussed also with Secretariat of UNESCO about some kit or maybe guide for secondary schools with use of intangible cultural heritage in different disciplines, using the experience of Asian countries, India and Asian countries, and some other countries, but also making it in Ukrainian, because it will be very important after the war to speak about intangible cultural heritage in ordinary school, not only in art schools, in professional association, but in ordinary schools in different disciplines, and not only in Ukraine, but also in other countries where now we have our refugees, children refugees. For example, in European country, but also in Canada, in other countries, there are some children coming from Ukraine now, and it will be very important to have such guidebook for teacher's guidebook, and speak about mathematics, about natural sciences, but using intangible cultural heritage as a background for these, some rituals, some crafts, some other. So we are thinking about it, and about, first of all, geometry using Petri Kivka painting and Eastern painting, X, and many other things. It will be, for us, it will be also very important to have some maybe examples from Canada, because we have included different cultures in these examples, how to teach children based on the intangible cultural heritage as a background, and it will be very important for secondary school, and then we can develop it for art school as well.
Yes. Okay. Well, thank you. That's very illuminating, and it sounds very interesting. So I think we have passed our time, and we'll have to close the session. I'd like to thank the participants for coming and for participating in this presentation. Especially like to thank our presenters, Professor Butsenko and Demian, as well as I think there was Valerie also from Ukraine who was with us today. And thank you so much for taking the time, and we would like to wish you the best. We would like to again express our solidarity to you, and especially do whatever we can to help you protect your heritage, tangible and intangible, as well as your people, of course. So thank you so much, and I do truly hope that this will be this contact and this presentation will be the beginning of a more serious collaboration with you.
Thank you very much. Also, it's for solidarity and for invitation, and I, if I can say, welcome to Ukraine, but not now, but we are waiting for you.
Yes. Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much again.
Okay. Bye-bye.
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 Bye. Oui, bonjour, Jean-François Nadeau, est-ce que vous êtes toujours là? Non, je pense qu'il est parti. Bon.